it's Amanda from The Fiction Fairy. Today I'm bringing you a book review, and the book review is on Number the Stars by Lois Lowry. And I read this book when I was about in the 4th grade, and I wanted to give it a reread for my March TBR and see if it just still had some of the same emotion for me as it did when I was younger, and see if I still enjoyed the story the same way that I did years ago when I read it. The book is about two best friends, Anne-Marie and Ellen, and they live in Copenhagen, and it's during the Nazi occupation. And during that time, the Nazis begin to round up all the Jews who are in Denmark. Anne-Marie is not Jewish, but Ellen is Jewish, and so when they start to round them all up, Ellen is in danger of her and her family being rounded up and relocated, which we all know now that being relocated meant they were taken to concentration camps. At the time, they were not sure what relocation meant. They just knew that it meant that the Nazis were taking them from their home cities and their home countries and moving them somewhere. But at the time, they didn't have any idea what was really happening, where you were going, or what was going to happen to you, because it was very early on during the occupation. So the story follows the two best friends and their lives of, food being rationed, electricity being rationed, and then, one day, Ellen's parents coming home and saying that the Nazis were going to round up all of the Jews and take them away. So what happens is that Ellen's family and Anne-Marie's family decide that Ellen is going to come live with Anne-Marie and her family and pretend to be her sister. Because Anne-Marie had an older sister, Lisa, who died in a car accident years before, so they felt that they could just have Ellen come, pretend that she was their sister, and then if the Nazis came, they would think nothing of it because Anne-Marie's family was not Jewish, so they would think that, clearly Ellen wasn't Jewish, because the Nazis had a list of all the people that went to the synagogues in Denmark, and that's how they were finding out their addresses and where to pick them up at. So unfortunately, Ellen's family, has to leave Ellen for fear of them being relocated, and then the plan of attack is to pass Ellen off as Anne-Marie's sister. That basically is the gist of the story. And then what happens is just a series of events having to protect Ellen, and Anne-Marie finding out things about her sister Lisa who died, finding out things about her, what would have been her brother-in-law, finding out things about her parents. She finds out throughout the story, she finds out a lot more about the Nazi occupation than she had originally known, and Anne-Marie really grows and develops. She goes from being a young girl with no cares in the world to the Nazis occupying her country and having to be more on your P's and Q's on a daily basis because, you don't want the Nazis to notice you. You always want to blend in with the crowd. You don't want to give them any reason to remember who you are, because if they remember who you are, then the chances are you'll be taken away later. So you see her grow into that, and then you really see her just become almost like adult-like, as the book comes to a close. So a lot of things that Anne-Marie is faced with. She's faced with the fact that she may lose her best friend. This is somebody she's known since birth. She's faced with the fact that she doesn't understand why the Nazis want to relocate the Jewish people, because Anne-Marie herself is a Catholic. So she doesn't understand really the Jewish religion, or why the Nazis even care about relocating the Jewish people, why they chose the Jewish people. It's really a learning experience for Anne-Marie. Anne-Marie sees shops closed down in her town, never realizing that the shop owners were Jewish, and then find out that they closed down because the shop owners were Jewish and they fled Denmark in order to not be relocated. So it's just really like a real learning experience. It was kind of sad the way Ellen and Anne-Marie's friendship is so close, and then because Ellen has this massive family drama to deal with the Nazis trying to relocate her family, that her and Anne-Marie kind of go on two separate paths. And it was a little bit heartbreaking how you see that it used to be Ellen and Anne-Marie all the time, but then at the end of the day, Ellen has to stick with her family. And then even though she loves Anne-Marie to death and that is her best friend, their relationship is no longer the central point of importance in Ellen's life. It really is Ellen's parents and Ellen's self and figuring out, what are they going to do with this whole relocation. So Anne-Marie's family, tries to help out Ellen. Anne-Marie ends up having to go on a mission of sorts, which is very dramatic, and I did not necessarily remember what the mission was from when I was younger, but reading it, my heart was pounding. Oh, I could not believe it. And it is to try to help save Ellen's life, to save her from being relocated. It is just a very dramatic point in the book. It's a very short book. It's a very quick book. There was points in the book where I was like, I don't really remember this, so I feel like I didn't really care for it. But when you get to the end of the book, the author has 2 or 3 pages of commentary about the book, and when you read that, it just broke my heart. It made not just the story, because the story, closed up nicely. You got the gist of it. It felt very complete. But then when the author had the last 2 or 3 pages telling you about the story that they had just written, it brought everything into perspective, and it was just like, I did not remember those couple pages at the end from when I read them when I was younger, and I was just like, oh my gosh, this is why I really love this book so much. And then it made me want to go back and reread it again, because I was reliving all the pieces of the book where I was kind of like, could take it or leave that part, and then I was like, oh man, I wish I'd grasped that a little bit harder, because this story was amazing. So the gist is that Number of the Stars is a really fantastic book for anybody who likes to learn about World War II, who is interested in the Nazi occupation, especially because a lot of times Nazi occupation books really talk about Germany and Poland, but they didn't really talk so much about, Denmark. And that's what I really liked about this book, is that it kind of was touched on that, and that how they were occupied and how long they were occupied for, and going through the daily lives of these girls. How would I feel, about another country occupying my city? How would I feel towards that country's soldiers? How would I even feel towards my own country? Like, why did we let this happen? Why didn't we fight harder? And why is this happening to us? So it was just a really amazing story. It still resonated with me the same way it did when I was younger, and probably more, because I'm older now, so I have seen the world, I know things of the world, and it really was just extra heartbreaking now that I'm older. I absolutely loved it. So I would recommend this to anybody who has read this book before and wants to give it a reread. I recommend this to anybody who has not read this before and wants to give it a try. I give this book a 4.5 out of 5 cupcakes, guys. This was an excellent book. And if you've read Number of the Stars, please let me know below what you liked about it, if you didn't like it. And if you haven't read Number of the Stars, please let me know below if you are thinking about picking it up. And if there's any other Lois Lowry books out there that you guys recommend, please let me know. I know there's The Giver, there's a couple other ones, but this is the first and only Lois Lowry book that I've ever read, so let me know if you have any recommendations. And also if you have any recommendations on any other World War II Nazi occupation books, because I am really interested in that subject, and I would love to read more books on it, whether they were autobiographies, biographies, memoirs, fiction, anything like that. Let me know if you have any suggestions in the comment box below. So thank you guys so much for coming past the Fiction Fairy and watching my review on Number of the Stars by Lois Lowry.